Today, our guest, Kristen Ann Ware. Kristen Ann's biggest dream was to make a positive difference in the world by following Jesus. After years of playing sports and graduating with a degree in marine science from the University of South Carolina, she landed a spot as a cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins. After cheering for 3 years, making extraordinary memories, traveling to over 30 countries, visiting the military, she quit in spring of 2017 after she was mocked over her virginity and Christianity. She filed a complaint against the team and the NFL, alleging discrimination based on sex and her faith. This made national headlines, and she has appeared on several different shows, including Inside Edition, The Today Show, Fox News, and more, to talk about her experiences. She now paints, writes poetry, and works with at-risk youth doing wilderness therapy, still on a mission to encourage others and spread God's love. Yeah. Welcome to Kowalski Analysis, Kristen Ann Ware.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me a safe opportunity to talk about my story.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people that follow me that they're waiting. They may not be virgins, but they're like born-again virgins.
Yeah.
We just talked about.
Yeah.
I think you actually have to be 1 year to be a born-again virgin by Urban Dictionary standards, but they are on their way to being born again.
Yeah.
Some of them already are. I know several people who have multiple years, and there's probably some virgins out there following me too. So anyway, I think it's going to be a great conversation for all of them. So you're down in South Carolina?
Yep, down in South Carolina.
It's great. Are you going to be hit with this hurricane that's coming, or it's not going to get you guys?
I don't really watch the news, but I hope that others are safe.
Yeah,
we'll deal with it if the storm comes.
Yeah, you would know about it. You would know about it. All right. So I would definitely want to talk to you just about, just some of the challenges and dynamics around being a virgin. You're 29 years old. I mean, gosh, wow. Like, you are a unicorn.
I'm almost 30.
Well, that's even more amazing. But I want to talk to you a little bit about, the NFL incident. So this was back in what, 2016, 2017?
Yeah, 2017 is when I walked away from the team.
Yeah. So how was it all resolved? Did you end up dropping the case? Is that what I read?
Well, yeah, that's like a complex story too, which my whole story is super complicated. But basically, like, when I was praying whether or not to do a lawsuit, my biggest struggle was, is the world going to see this as hate and as revenge, or are they going to see it as love? And that's always like in the forefront of my mind is love. Like, you have to send out love and forgiveness and not seek revenge or hate no matter what's been done to you. And so that was my biggest struggle. And then God sent me Esther 4:14, which has been this reoccurring number in my life throughout the years as just him speaking my testimony, back into my life constantly, letting me know that he's here through it all. And
what is that verse?
Esther 4:14 is, who's to say that you weren't born for such a time as this to use your voice? And for me, like, I had just left the team, with this kind of culture of you're not allowed to say anything except for yes, ma'am. You can't have an opinion about anything. You're supposed to just stay quiet and do what you're told. And so I went from being this super outgoing girl, about everything, to kind of timid and closed off. So using my voice to relive what had just happened was just reoccurring trauma for me. So it was really hard to speak out. But when God gave me Esther 4:14, the only thing that my spirit was led to do was to fight for her, to make a difference for the next girl that was going to become a cheerleader. People think that I did it for my 15 minutes of fame, and I scratch my head. That's like, one, you can't really become famous for being a virgin, because it's just not how the world works these days. Right. But two, I can never reap the benefits of speaking out about the very thing that I loved the most, knowing that, like, I would never be able to cheer again.
Right.
The possibilities were I could just audition for another cheerleading team and hope that it would be better than how it was on the Dolphins. So making a decision that I couldn't reap the benefits from was God's plan. Because it was always about her and it's always about somebody else. So he told me to speak out, to tell the truth, to use my voice for his love. And he never in my spirit did I feel like it was meant to go to the courtroom, or that I was meant to now be a cheerleader out of debt, you know, like to receive money from it. None of that was led in my spirit. It was just about sharing my testimony and making a difference. And so that's what I did. And the lawsuit kept pursuing forward and forward, with now me getting threats of being sued, and that they wanted to gag order me and all these things. But for me to lay my head down at night, I have to tell my testimony. Because it's not just a story of cheerleading, it's about what God did through cheerleading. And to not be able to share that would not be me sharing my faith. Right. So it was around, I think, I believe it was October or November of 2018 was when I chose to drop the lawsuit. I didn't sign an NDA. I didn't receive hush money. I didn't receive a dime from that lawsuit. And when it came time for me needing witnesses, you know, to go forward in the courthouse, all of my witnesses said that they didn't want to burn a bridge with the Dolphins. And the one cheerleader that said that she wanted to come forward ended up having a panic attack that day and got rushed to the emergency room. So I was left with no one to witness what they saw, and it was just me claiming what had happened. Even though, like, behind closed doors, they're like, I was there, I believe you, I know you're doing nothing but good and telling the truth, but I don't want to burn a bridge. It's like everyone's afraid of burning a bridge with the NFL because they're the most popular business there is. I mean, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, and they get away with a lot of things. Right. And so the lawsuit was just about me bringing awareness. It wasn't fighting against them. It was fighting for the girls. And so I dropped it. But that means that I can write my book, and I'm not gag ordered, and I can be here today to say whatever the heck I want to say about the story.
Well, there you go. That's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was kind of thinking that through in my mind, and I was like, I wonder, you know, trying to figure it out. Like, so, you know, I remember when Tebow was in the league, and, you know, obviously he was very vocal about, you know, the fact that he was a virgin, and he, you know, obvious displays of his Christianity. And I loved him for that. I was like, whatever team he goes to, I'm a fan of. Like, seriously, Same. I was a Broncos fan when he played for the Broncos. Like, I was hoping the Ravens drafted him because I loved him. I just love his heart too. But, you know, like he suffered some backlash for it, but not in the same way. You know, and I think that was part of your case too, is that's the sex discrimination is like, okay, you know, guys are kneeling, they're praying in the middle of the field or whatever. But here I'm not being told I can't talk about my Christianity or my virginity. And I was thinking to myself, like, why would that be? Like, and I guess the thought that occurred to me was, okay, first off, there's plenty of women that are, you know, not committed to those values, right? So they're out having sex with people, with potentially, who knows, people, you know, in power, you know, maybe in power in the NFL. So you making them,
I have stories.
yeah, absolutely. I bet you do. You making them feel wrong would kind of screw it up for the people. Like, so the guys don't want the girls to stop, right? Because they're getting the benefits of girls not committed to waiting. And the girls don't want to be made to feel wrong if they're the ones having sex. So they're going to automatically try to demonize the person that is upholding the standard. You know, and I think it's different from a guy, because if a guy stops having sex, other guys are like, awesome, more for us, right? They're not threatened by it. So I think that could potentially be why, you know, people kind of hated on you. Do you see that? Did you ever think that through like that?
I mean, so my constant prayer through my life has just been like, create in me a pure heart. And
love that Psalm. I'm going to get that tattoo for me.
It's actually one of the paintings that I have behind me that I painted, but it's just because of that prayer and because of how God works. This could be a bad thing, and some people could call it naiveness, or it could just be a fruit of the Spirit thing where, you know, I really do try to see the good in others. And it took a lot of convincing for me to realize, and a lot of therapy, that what they did was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know that them bringing up my personal choices in life, religion, whatever it may be, I didn't know that was against the law.
Right.
I didn't know that that was inappropriate. I just thought, oh, it's the NFL. I'm safe here. I finally made it. I am safe. And then they do subtle things like that, like subtle gaslighting, subtle manipulation. And they do these things for control. And it works when people intimidate you. It works, especially when you wanted to be in that uniform and you worked so hard to get there. But yeah, when I was thinking about it, the first thought in my mind was just like, it's unfair. Like, as much as they know that I haven't had sex, they also know that other girls, other people in the organization did or were or are, having sex. So why pull in the one
right,
and have it be a problem versus just bringing in the entire organization and saying, whatever your sexual preference is, if you're having it, if you're not, if you're thinking about it, if you're not, don't talk about it. But it wasn't like I had a sign, hello, I'm a virgin and my name is Kristen and I'm going around with my pom-poms. Like, no, like I told a hand amount of girls on the team on a bus ride in London, and it blew up. And that's how the coaches found out that I had a True Love Waits ring and that I was waiting for marriage. It wasn't because I was out there with a megaphone, like it was just girl talk that then spread to what you were talking to is, maybe I'm exposing their darkness. Maybe they're not ready to move out of pursuing sin. Or maybe they don't even believe in God and they think it's just silly and funny that somebody would wait for marriage. Everyone comes with so many different ideas. But even right now, as I'm saying this, I'm like thinking about the past of like Christians get told so much when they're speaking of God's word that they're being judgmental. And it was never about me judging other people's lifestyle. It was about me personally, my conviction to what God led me to do. And that was waiting for marriage. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I'm first in line to get a perfect husband. It doesn't mean that I'm going directly to heaven. Only Jesus saves. Only you accepting Christ into your heart does that. Like, Christianity is not about being good. It's not about being perfect. And I'm not perfect. But the older that I got, the less it was about being a good girl and more about becoming a God's girl. Like I got told in church, like, hey, wait for marriage, and then in school, you're like, if you hug a boy, you're going to get pregnant, like all these things that you hear and you become scared. And so I was doing what was expected of me. Which was a people-pleasing spirit, which in God's eyes, like, it's not about what the people expect of you, it's what he calls of you. And so I had to shed that, and that was the testimony of The Wait, the book. Have you heard of the book, The Wait?
Devin Good.
Yeah.
I didn't read it though. Like a lot of people have told me about it just because I wrote a book in the same week. But
you should read it. It's so good.
I heard great things about it. I'm going to send you my book. You don't need my book.
Please send me my book.
You probably don't even need my book. You're good. I mean,
heck, you don't know.
You're good enough. Let's just say that. No, like you were talking to, and the word says that the darkness doesn't, that they don't love it doesn't love the light, Mm-hmm. So people don't want to come into the light because their deeds will be exposed. So there's people, the powers that be, are banging cheerleaders. I guarantee there are, because I know human nature. If there's power, if they have the power to do stuff, they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. Power corrupts, is the saying. Yeah. And I guarantee you that's going on. So you being light, they don't want you jacking up the
system.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's crazy because the world is so upside down right now with you got people like Cardi B. I don't know if you've heard the song WAP. If you haven't heard it, do not listen to it. Okay. Anyway, yes. It's terrible. But like here,
I've seen it on TikTok.
People are praising her, saying, "Oh, she's a I don't know what the word was. It's inspiration.
Influencer.
An inspiration or whatever somebody called her in political office. I think it might have been Biden." And I'm like, how in the hell is this girl an inspiration? We wonder why we got all the problems, why we got all these people in jail because they got fatherless homes. And then you go out and you praise somebody. When I was in high school, I Want Your Sex by George Michael wasn't like it was not basically being allowed to played on certain radio stations because it was too racy. That was like nothing compared to what they're talking about now. Like, it's so raunchy.
I know.
It's like audible pornography, and then we praise the people that make it, and then we wonder why kids are getting pregnant, and society's so screwed up. Everything is ass backward, upside down right now, and for me, it's like the writing's on the wall that Jesus is coming back soon.
Oh, we're in end times for sure, and that could be a whole nother discussion. But 100% revelations.
But
But you're right. That's also written. And a verse that I had to keep reminding myself of when I was going through like just so much hostility and accusations and the mocking through my third year, the one verse that kept coming to my mind, and I can't recall where exactly it is, but it's, do not become jealous of the wicked. I think it's a Proverbs, but because I just saw these girls who were breaking contract, doing those things of power that you mentioned, like doing all these things, and they were being praised on the team. Whereas me, just a Christian who everyone found out about because I got baptized, and nothing changed. I didn't speak more about it. I continued writing on my social media like I always have. Nothing changed, but the fact that it annoyed them. I don't know. And then you have people who say they're Christians, and everyone's okay with the golden cross on your neck. But until someone lives it, speaks it, and walks with the cross on their back, now they have a problem. And so the very girls that called me a God puppet are the very girls who sent me a text the day that my story broke and called me a pathetic bee and a liar, and saying that they didn't get persecuted and they're Christians. But it's like, you can say you're a Christian, but where's your fruit?
Right.
It doesn't mean where's your perfect life, but where's your fruit? Like, where's just even your basic kindness, you know? Like,
yeah. Anybody's life changing because of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just, I think I was going somewhere with that, and then I forgot it. But I talk a lot, so that could happen multiple times today.
My bad. I interrupted you. So
No,
you even got some backlash from the church too.
Oh, unfortunately, yeah. Not all churches. You know, I have some friends who are pastors. Pastor Perry Noble. Oh my goodness, I love that man. He has become an amazing mentor and friend in my life. He is just as real as can be. And it was because of him that I got baptized before my third year. It was one of his messages at church, and the whole church walked me to a YMCA, and I got baptized in a pool. And that's just how it went. But he's a great guy. But on the other end of things, I got told that I was a fake Christian, that there's no way that I was a child of God, that I'm no better than Eve. I'm to blame for all male sexual sin in the world. How dare I call myself a Christian? Dance is a form of witchcraft. I mean, from the cuckoo of all cuckoos to just complete judgments from the church when, like, I mean, that's what people do though. Yeah. They judge your surface level adversities and call you off from God. And God sends his children everywhere and anywhere. If he didn't, then the church wouldn't exist. The church is not in walls. The church is in the world. And you hear these amazing testimonies of people from broken lives becoming saved, all because one story they were able to relate to. You know, it's
100% agree.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Look
like
at Matthew's house.
Yeah. Yes.
Religious people didn't get it back then, and they don't get it now. The religious people saw Jesus and said, "Oh, if he was really who he said he was, he wouldn't be hanging out with them." And he's like, "It's not the healthy that need a doctor; it's the sick." It's like religious people, they don't get it. I hate when somebody tells me I'm religious. I'm like, I'm not religious. I
always correct.
I just know that Jesus is who he said he was, and I have a relationship with him. I throw
That's key.
I throw the biggest New Year's Eve party in Baltimore every year. Religious people don't do that. I said, I'm not religious. I was like,
but you're reaching the people.
Yeah, but religious people, like, and when people are critical like that, I'm like, you are being way more like the Pharisees than you're being like Jesus right now. Exactly. Jesus was doing his thing. He was not worried about what anybody else was doing. He wasn't criticizing. He was so busy with helping people, he didn't have time to worry about what other people are doing. So if somebody's criticizing you or anyone else, that automatically tells you that they ain't doing enough. Because if they were doing more, they wouldn't have time to worry about what other people are doing. Right. So I always tell people, just run your race. Let me run mine.
Right. And I mean, that's true. It's like, for me, one of the messages that I want to get across too is this culture of raising children and women to be the good girl, or to go out in the world and make a name for yourself, leave a legacy. And it's like, we're literally raising children to core belief that the name that God gave them isn't already enough. And so they achieve and they strive and they achieve and they strive and they have all these trophies in their home, and it's empty. It means completely nothing, but they made a name for themselves. And so, two, we have to shed that belief and stop seeking enoughness and know that who we are, when we accept Christ into our lives, into our hearts, that's already enough. Everything else is extra for the kingdom. And the word does what it naturally does, which is it allows you to walk in fruit of the Spirit and make life, like help other people, change lives, send people to, like all this stuff. You don't force anything. And I've been forced before to religion, and I rebelled. Like I feel that, and nowhere ever would I do that to somebody else. Like God has his own journey for everyone. And if he didn't, we wouldn't have so many different beautiful testimonies, you know? So yeah, for me, it was just about staying true to who I was and not straying from that. And if people can go through the fires of hell and be tried over and over and over again, but still choose to remain in light and love and forgiveness, that's God. That's fruit. You know, like, I don't know. I think there's like so much to be said about that. Like Jesus has every right to seek revenge. He is the one person in this world that can seek revenge, but he chose to die for our sins, knowing that we may never ask for forgiveness or never choose him. And he still chose to die. Like that's like a tear. Like that's like the greatest love you ever hear of, you know, like somebody giving forgiveness, even though they may never be remorseful, or, you know, it's just, I don't know. Jesus is amazing. And
it was in my daily light this morning. He talked about, you know, basically that God loved us so much that he sent Jesus. He's like, who would die? How often would someone die for someone? But although for a good man, someone might dare to die. He says, but God displays his own love for us. And this is that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Basically, exactly what you're saying. He didn't know if we were going to reciprocate.
Right.
He gave it all first. So let's talk about when you made this decision, like to remain pure, when you got your purity ring. Someone actually on social media asked, they said, you know, this purity wasn't even something brought up in their home. It was never even a conversation had. So for them, you know, it was a foreign concept. So like, was that something that was instilled in you at a young age? And how old were you when you made that decision?
Yeah, I think I was 13. My mom got me a True Love Waits Bible, which I still have to this day. But I actually wasn't reading like the Bible, but it was like a children's Bible. So like inside they had like these cute little stories with pictures, and that's what I was mostly interested in. But growing up, there was this one story that always, I swear it was just God. Like that was how he entered, you know, my heart. And it was a story about this gold locket. And I'll try to make it quick. But basically this little kid's in kindergarten. And he's like, Mommy, I have a crush on this girl and I want to get her something special. And so the mom helped him like go to the store, and he found like this cute gold locket. And so he gave it to the girl and she loved it and it was great. Well, then he liked another girl a few years later, and he's like, Mom, I like her so much, I want to get her a present. And so he went out and got the same gold locket for her and gave it to her, and she was surprised and she loved it and it was great. Well, then they broke up, and so on and so on and so on until the day that he meets his wife. And he's like, wow, like I love this girl so, so, so much, and I want to give her something special. But the only thing he knew what to give was that gold locket. And so it was just another cycle. He gave her a gold locket and she loved it, but he wasn't able to like express like how special she was from all the others, you know? And so for me, it was like, wow, like I want to give something that I've never given anyone to my husband.
Yeah.
You know, and I want that to be special. It doesn't mean that I haven't had multiple testimonies of me, you know, kind of doubting, you know. Just a quick testimony of the book, The Wait. When I was going through all that stuff my third year, like with my coaches telling me that I needed to develop into a woman and that virginity is dirty these days and all those things, I met a boy. And I've been single for now like 8 years. So not a lot goes on around here in my personal love life. But I met this guy and he was a preacher's son, which I'm finding they're the worst. But anyway, he was just like so sexy. Like I didn't even know what to do with it. You know, like I was like, what is this? And we were talking for a few months, and this was during, again, my third year. So I'm kind of timid, have some walls up, but he ended up saying, oh, by the way, I can't date you unless you have sex with me. And I was like, wait, what? Like so shocked, because I was like, he wouldn't even take me on a date unless I had sex with him. And because I had so much pressure from my coaches and the girls and my teammates, and it's like this one thing that God asked me to do is now turning into somewhat of a curse. I debated giving it up. And I was like, screw it. Yeah, I was like, God, you still love others who didn't wait. They're still blessed in a marriage. They're still having kids. It's not like you sent down and struck them with lightning just because they had sex before marriage. And I was like, so why am I waiting? You know, like it's just turning into such a hassle for my life.
You need to read my book.
Look, send it. I'm going to read it.
I'm going to send it as soon as this interview's over.
Yes. But so I called my mentor, Stephanie McCormick, and she was amazing because at a time when I was under this strict contract with the NFL, she gave me the honor to choose. She didn't come in with a safety net. She didn't tell me, no, Kristen, you waited so long. Like, don't do it. She guided me to make my own choice and then to face the consequences. And I'll never forget this. She said, I told her, I was like, Stephanie, I'm going to give it up. Like, I'm so sick of all of this. Like, if I do it, then I can keep my uniform. I can be a cheerleader for as long as I want. I won't get kicked out. Like, people will like me. I'll have a boyfriend finally. And maybe.
Or you might have had sex with him and he left, which happens,
of course.
Happens all the time.
And I feel for those girls because I mean, those are the strongest women who can go through that. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah. And
so she said, Kristen, there is nothing that you can or cannot do that's going to make God love you any more or any less. Now, me hearing that in my spirit immediately was, I don't want to abuse God's grace. I don't want to abuse his mercy. I need it every single day.
Yeah.
But I don't want to abuse it. And so anyway, the next day, Adriana Smith, who cheered with me, but then became a Miami Heat NBA dancer, she invited me to church. And it was a church I'd never been to before. And we were taking like a spiritual gifts test. And the pastor started just profusely sweating. And I was like, oh boy, this church is crazy. I'm never coming back here. You know, like one of those crazy churches. And he was like speed walking, like back and forth in the room. And then out of nowhere, it was like the voice of God. And he was like, is there a Kristen where in the building?
Whoa. He by name. Wow.
And I was like, I know. I have goosebumps already. I already have goosebumps again. And I like questionably like raised my hand, and he said, I have a message from the Lord for you. Wow. And he goes, he who finds a wife is blessed, not she who seeks a husband. I know. And he started saying that my children's children, they're already blessed. Like God is working. You're on the edge. Like keep holding on. Don't lose faith. Like there's no way he could have known what I had just been on my knees for the night before. And I told God, I said, God, you need to show up. One of those desperate prayers. or else I'm going to give up. I'm going to turn my back on you. I need to know that you're real personally for me, not because of what I've heard in other people's testimonies and at church, but personally, I want to experience you and I need to. And so that happened. And before he finished talking, he said, Lord says you need to read the book, The Wait. And so I'm just like jotting this down and I'm like, okay. So anyway, I leave church. I call Stephanie. I'm like, Stephanie, you're not going to believe this. Like I just talked to you last night and then God showed up, as if that wasn't enough, and proved that God is constantly going before us. I go to my mail and check it, and there was a package there for me. And I open it and I read the card, and it was from Stephanie. And she goes, obviously she sent this. She was like, I meant to send this to you a month ago, but life got busy. And I was in the bookstore and I picked up this one book, and the Lord told me, she goes, the Lord told me that wasn't the right book. And I kind of argued with God, because I was like, no, I want her to read this book. Like, I want her to have this book. And the Lord kept telling her in her spirit, do not get her that book. And so she aimlessly, this is all in the card, just aimlessly walking around the bookstore. And then the Lord told her, send this one. And I continued to open up the package, and it was the book, The Wait.
Holy crap.
And I know. And I read it and I'm a slow reader. And I read it within that day, and I put sticky notes in my locker room. I put sticky notes in my apartment. I wrote Bible verses on my boots because they were silencing me from sharing my faith. I put Bible verses from that book in my pom-poms, like everywhere, because the world is going to try to manipulate and take many things from you, but they could not take or steal my faith. You just can't. You can't steal that from someone. Like, that belongs to the Lord. And so I then had a purpose in why I was waiting. I wasn't just doing it to be a good Christian or a good girl, or it became so much deeper than that. And when we pray to be more like Christ, don't be afraid when he sends you through the fire, because the only way to be like him is to walk in his shoes. You can't just be like Christ and be of love and, and a light and all those things until you've been tried over and over and over again. And so once I had the purpose, it didn't take away my tears. It didn't take away the hostile work environment. It didn't take away my pain, but it gave me a personal faith and an experience with God to hold on for longer, to go through the trials, to face those accusations and see it as pure joy. Yeah. It took those just dreadful, trenches of darkness to be able to still have just some sort of view of his light. Mm-hmm. As far away as it felt, he was still there. And so I don't even know what question you asked, but
that was a great story.
There's part of my story.
No, it was awesome.
Thanks.
You said you were talking about that story that you read when you were 13, and it reminded me of I did a podcast. We met at Acme Podcast, and they're very liberal, and they, of course, not thinking it all the way that I do. She was mad that I was saying it was wrong, and she's like, "Well, what if you're just sex positive?" Which is basically the new term for being slutty. And I'm like, I said.
Sex positive.
She goes, well, I said, look, a strong man doesn't want a girl that anybody could sleep with. I said, now, a strong man doesn't want to take care of a girl anybody that slept with everybody. And she goes, well, if my partner asked me how many people I've been with, I would tell him it's none of his business. And I wouldn't ask him how many people he's been with. And I was like, it wouldn't matter as much to you. And she goes, what? She got all upset. I'm like, it wouldn't matter as much to you. She goes, well, why would you say that? I said, because men want sex and women want security. I break it. This is something I didn't say that I thought about later. Mm-hmm. First off, if you're not telling your partner something, there's obvious shame. There's a reason why you're not telling them. You're ashamed. So you're automatically
unresolved. Yeah.
Yeah. There's you know that you did something wrong. You could say, mask it however you want or disguise it however you want. But I said, imagine if you were to get engaged to a man and you said, you get engaged and then you ask him how many people you have been engaged to, and you find out that he's been engaged to every other girl he dated before you. How would you feel? Not that special. That's how guys feel when a girl sleeps with everybody before them. Not that special. It's the same. It's the same thing. So like, I love what you're saying about you wanted to give something to that person that you know, to only that person. It's something special. Yeah. And I think that there's definitely something to that, you know, so I really, you know, applaud you. I'd love to talk a little bit about like, so how did you make it to 29, you know, in this world that we live in? Like, so give me some,
I've been single.
What are some of the biggest challenges? Okay. Let's talk about that. How do you overcome loneliness?
Well,
got to keep good boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, well, I have learned that like seasons of loneliness will pass, you know, but I don't know, like talk about boundaries. Like my childhood, like wasn't perfect, you know, like I had multiple encounters of being sexually molested. I was sexually molested by a family member. I was taken from my house when I was 4 or 5, and kidnapped, and my little brother found me, and then the cops got involved. So sexual boundaries.
The reason that let me clarify the question.
Yeah.
The reason that I ask about loneliness and I mentioned boundaries is because when I committed myself to being pure, I had to set up such strong boundaries that, you know, I couldn't hang out with women alone anymore because I knew it would lead to sex. So I literally found myself being alone a lot. Like, you know, before I wasn't committed to waiting, I was never lonely. I always had a girl by my side, you know, didn't matter who, you know, so I always had someone to hang out with, go on dates with, have sex with, everything that leads up to sex with. And when you become committed to waiting, you're like, you lose a lot of that, you know, because now all of a sudden, I don't even want to spend time with one girl too much, even as a friend, because she might catch feelings or, you know what I mean? So like, it's a lot of group dynamics. And if you don't have a group, then you're really screwed because you're literally alone. So I was just wondering for you at 29, like you had to go through a lot of that. Like, how did you overcome the loneliness? Or maybe how do you? Is it through your faith community, or do you like being alone? I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. For me, I'm just trying to like think back because like for me, you can feel alone even in like a crowded room. You know, it's like, so for me, like my loneliness, I don't know. I guess I just don't really feel alone. Maybe that's why I don't have an answer, but it's like, sure, there are times when like I think like, is the rapture going to happen and I'm never going to get married? You know, like things like that.
100%. You know? I made a video on YouTube called "What If I Never Have Sex Again?" I'm serious. That's a legit fear of mine. I'm like, God, you know, like I've been abstinent. I was abstinent for 6 years after I got saved. And then I, outside of 2 mistakes, the last 9 years, you know, and it's like, am I ever going to have regular sex again? You know, like that was a huge part of my life before. And I'm like, I want that, you know, like, but I'm not, also I won't settle. So it's just,
I feel that.
This is why I tell people that wait until marriage works. As bad as I want the pleasure of sex, which is pretty bad, I equally don't want the pain of divorce. So I go like this. I weigh everybody I meet. And I'm like, oh, I'd like to have sex with her, but I really don't see anything really long-term.
Like a depth,
Yeah, so you just avoid all those negative situations, and it's just tension that you have to learn to live in.
Well, I think like that's just what's been engraved in my soul is like, I don't want to just get married. I want a marriage of ministry. I want a marriage of purpose. I want a marriage that serves the kingdom. I want a marriage that makes a difference and leaves an impact for God, you know? And so when I see guys that are like that one guy that I fell for as a cheerleader, it's like, wow, like you're super eye-catching, you know, but like, can you really lead me to God? Can you really challenge me in my faith? Can you grow me deeper and deeper and deeper, but also meet me there in that depth? You know, like
I mean, the audacity of this guy. He said, "I won't even take you on a date unless you have sex." What?
He's
balls?
in my book, by the way.
He's got balls like a lion. I mean, I was pretty bad, but I would never said anything like that.
Yeah. Well, he was just one of those guys that are used to girls being all over him and not saying no because he was sexy. He is very sexy. Like, he is. Like, I'm just like, whoa. Even to this day, I'm like, dang, that's why I fell for it that easily, you know? But yeah, I don't know. I guess, like, I desire, you know, I desire to love and be loved by a man, but it's not like something that is at the forefront of my mind, I guess. Like, I think I don't know, even in the midst of like me having like a lonely spell, like you mentioned, and I'm crying, like, I don't know, I find a lot of comfort in knowing that, like, because I've seen God at work and I've seen him go before me so many times, it's like, this will happen. You know, if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. And so, no, I don't force anything. I don't know.
What do you tell guys that you date? Like, do you tell them that you're waiting? Like, what do you tell them? When do you tell them? How do you tell them? Because I get that question a lot. Where people are like, well, am I supposed to put it in my dating profile? Like that I'm waiting? And I'm like,
yeah.
To me, it's not a bad idea because my theory, not my theory. What I know is this. Standards attract the right person. They repel the wrong people. So if someone
do boundaries.
Yes. Someone like you that's waiting, to me, honestly, as a guy that's been waiting and working on myself, I find it extremely attractive. I'm intrigued. If anything, if I lean in, I'm like, whoa, I want to know more. The old me would have been like, I'm out. You would have,
right.
I would have avoided you because I'm like, all I'm looking for is sex. I'm not looking for a relationship. So like, how do you do it? When do you do it? How do you do it? What do you say? I'd like to know all that. Yeah.
Well, I haven't dated in years, so I'll just speak from my past experiences, and then I'll maybe mention what I would do today if it happened. So in my past, like high school, college, it was right up front. Like, hey, just so you know, like, I have this thing going on. It's like true love waits, and it means I'm waiting. So,
that's my chastity belt. Clink. You get in the car to hear a clank. Oh, that's my chastity belt. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, mine's a little dainty ring. And so I would just say it up front. One, to save me from heartache. And two, just to weed them out. Like, if they aren't okay with that, then that's fine. And my mistake doing that was I dated guys who accepted it, but who didn't honor it. And so there's a difference. Like, a guy can be like, oh, cool, I can't wait to introduce you to my mom, versus a guy who's like, wow, that's to be cherished. That's to be honored. I'm going to walk with you through that and in that. You know, there's a difference. And so it's like girls are falling for guys and like hyping over just the basic things. Like, oh my gosh, this guy, he opened the car door for me. Whoa, he's a keeper. And I'm like, what? Like, that should already,
so low.
I know, it's like just the simple basics we're like applauding these men for, and it's like, okay, they're still boys. Like, find a man, you know. Anyway, so now I maybe wouldn't necessarily be like, hey, guess what? Like, I'm waiting for marriage. I would try to first just ask about faith. Like, hey, like, and that's before we even get to dinner. If a guy wants to ask me out on a date, like, I have that conversation before I even get there, because I'm not about to be unequally yoked. So, and if you're not ready to date, you're not ready to get married. So that's just the same. But I don't know, like, I've had girls tell me like, oh, don't even mention it. Like, don't even wear your ring to the date, and have them fall for you and then tell them. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Bait and switch.
Like, don't bring out your crazy too soon, you know, like that kind of thing, you know. But then I also believe that honesty is the best policy. And it's not like I'm trying to put out, hey, I want to have this amount of kids and me live here. It's not about that, but it's just about like just showing up as yourself and all of yourself, and not being ashamed to share pieces of yourself and getting to that depth. But I don't know, like, it hasn't happened, and I've been single for 8 years, like I said. So I don't know.
Well, how long? What's the longest relationship? How long have you been?
The longest relationship was 3 years.
That had to be tough.
And that was in high school. And then I had another relationship in college that was like maybe off and on, like 2, but super toxic, off and on. Yeah. Super toxic. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the positives from waiting, because it definitely has caused some challenges and some negatives in your life. So I don't want to discourage people from trying this.
Right.
I talk a lot about the positives, like the practicality of purity. You know, like, and this is for me. I lived at polar ends of the spectrum. Literally made. I mean, I won't. You know, lots of casual sex to literally none, and I very clearly understand why it makes sense to wait, why God had us do it this way. But for you, like, how has it helped you? Has it helped you? Obviously, it's helped you weed guys out. Have you noticed anything else?
Yeah, what's the word? Not determination. I can't even think of it. Yeah, resilience. But it's like it's just made me super willpower. Like, yeah, like if I did hear Cardi B's song or I did see something in a movie, like I'm not super tempted. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just brought up this sole purpose to the depth and the why and the who of why I'm waiting. And so that's what I've seen. It's definitely, I've had heartbreak for sure, but it's also, I couldn't imagine how many heartbreaks I would have had, you know, if I did give it up to that guy and then he left, like you mentioned, or, you know, but I feel for those girls who just didn't know. Yeah. And I feel for the girls who do know, but they're just empty or sad or lost, or just doing what their friends are doing because they just don't have that depth yet, you know, and God can be there too. Like, just because you have had so many partners and you have done that, it doesn't discredit you or make you damaged goods. A guy is still, if he loves you, he's going to love all of you, past or present. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just not going to matter. And that's why I tell people, it's like, just because I've waited, it doesn't make me any better than a girl who hasn't. You know what I mean? We all come with our things and our flaws. So God can be anywhere in that. And I guess
come a time to stop the madness. That's what I tell people. Like, whatever you've done in the past is the past, and everything can be forgiven. I'm living proof of that. But there does come a time to stop the madness. You know, like you have to stop and course correct. And
like if you're a Christian, and I mean, you just don't say you are, you know, like you've devoted your life to Christ, you and the word is going to do what it naturally does. You don't have to force that, but you come to a time when you stop pursuing sin and you start pursuing Christ. And that's a huge, huge, huge difference. Like, before you just sinned and you didn't even know. And now it's like, oh wait, you know, it's like you question, like, and I know we go, what would Jesus do? Like, you know, those things. And so you just stop pursuing that life. And like the enemy says, like, because you have sinned, you have to continue living in sin. And God says, no, sin, go forward and sin no more, you know, like, just pursue me. And that's what it's all about. And so, like, I don't want girls or guys to feel like it's too late or that too much damage has been done, because there are so many positives in it. And I know I've only listed a few, but it's just your focus is different. Like, you're seeing the person, you're seeing the heart, you're falling in love with a forever kind of mindset, rather than just right now, instant gratification, lust, physical. Like, I look at a man like so much deeper now. It's like I see past them. It's like looking right into the heart, looking into the soul, and you get this soul check, like, he's God's. He's a God guy, you know, instead of being like, whoa, he's a hot guy. You know, it's just this, it's very different how you see people. And when you cleanse yourself of only going after surface level things, you start seeing the real person.
Yeah, I made a video also about, you know, it's too late, I've already had sex, because that was a comment that I got on my 10 Reasons video. I like, oh, too late. I'm like, listen, it's never too late.
No.
It's like saying it's too late to exercise. No, look, you're still alive. it doesn't matter if you're out of shape. You just start. I mean,
Right.
for me,
It's like, oops, I ate a whole bag of Doritos yesterday. I should never, ever eat a salad ever again.
yeah, I should just never diet again. Like,
No.
it works. I'm like, I was my last relationship. I was sexually active 9 years ago, and God started convicting me of the sex. I was like, okay, I'm going to try it again your way. I said, but if I'm in love, convince me I'll marry her. If I'm not in love, help us break up. So we stopped having sex. We broken up until we probably broke up like 15 times. We kept getting back together because the sex
Yeah.
like you're in love. And literally,
Well, that's what the enemy does.
Yes.
He wants to keep you there.
Yeah. So like a month later, she got pregnant by her neighbor, and she ended up moving out of state with her baby. God just took her. And of course I didn't know.
Whoa.
Yeah, he totally answered the prayer. But the thing is, I think back to that, and I could have totally drifted into a marriage with that girl, because it felt kind of at times like we were in love. And that's what happens to people all the time is they drift. They start as a hookup. They drift into relationships. Some of them drift into marriages, and they're with the wrong people. And that's why the divorce rate's so high. And that's why you got people that even that aren't divorced are unhappily married, and they miss they miss their calling. They never discover their purpose. They got the wrong person next to them that can't help them get there, even if they know what it is. And it just jacks everything up. I mean, look, super difficult, as you know, but so worth it, so worth it.
It is worth it. Even on the nights where you're crying and lonely, like you mentioned, even when you're being laughed at or a guy wants nothing to do with you and says that you're a tease and a waste of a woman's body. When they say, and then they degrade you and try to put you down, so then maybe you will give it up because now you feel like absolutely nothing and you want them to love you and accept you so much that you're willing to just do it. And it's like, it's not about people accepting you. It's not about even accepting yourself. It's about denying yourself, like denying your urges and giving them to God, because he can use that. He can use every little single detail that you have going on in your life. Like he's in it, but it is worth it. And just know, like, if you're with someone hot and the sex is good or whatever you're doing, to any of my listeners that are listening right now, it's like, that's going to fade.
Yeah.
And so imagine if you're in a relationship right now and everything on the surface is good. Imagine everything that is surfacely good. Let it be gone. And just imagine that person without that. Without the looks, without the nice tall legs, without the figure, without whatever that you can see with the naked eye. Is your relationship still worth having? Is it still beautiful? Is it producing good? Is there something deeper than just what you're seeing and doing in the bedroom? Yeah. You got to think about that. Don't even think ahead. Just think deeper.
Yeah. That's smart. It's good advice.
Yeah.
So what's the future hold? You got a book coming up?
Oh my gosh. Yes. If I can write through the hard stuff. But yes, I am working on a book, and it's just about, more detail of the cheerleading testimony. And my publisher is in California, so we've kind of been going back and forth over the phone and in text messages, which can really overdo a project, but we're trying. So yeah, I just pray that the book just helps a girl, either before something terrible happens or even during or after, and just, I don't know, just maybe gently, like the Spirit just gently nudges them, to his arms, because now is the time to really start considering faith. And if you've thought Jesus was a hoax your whole life, like, I just challenge you to just look out and look at the news, and then even if just compare it to the Bible and see if it has not already been written, and have that be proof enough.
You hear about the peace deal in Israel?
The what?
The peace treaty they just passed in Israel?
Oh, the peace. Now, that's not the huge one that the Bible talks about.
It's not the one from prophecy, but I mean, we're headed there. We're headed there.
Oh, we're totally headed there, yeah. And it's like, for some people, that's so scary. They're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so scared. And I'm like, bring it. Because like, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pray that we both get to have sex before that day comes.
Amen.
Not with each other, I meant, but just in
Yeah,
general.
I know. And that's the
Anyway.
thing. It's like people think that I'm like waiting for this guy that's like never had sex, and I'm like, no, like that's just not it. People think like because you're waiting you're perfect and you want perfect, and that's just not even true. So
Well,
scratch
hey,
that theory.
so people can find you. You got a website. You're on
Yeah.
Instagram. Tell everybody where they can find you.
My Instagram is Kristen.Ann. And then I have my blog, which is called Cheering for God, but that's www.kristenann.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we were introduced, and I look forward to keeping up with your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been safe. It's been fun. It's great. Thank you.